Alrighty, folks. Can I go home yet? This is how the game will work. Each contestant will be asked 10 math questions from the unit dealing with trapezoids and kites. I will ask the questions and you will say your answer. Each correct answer will be awarded with 10 points. A final Jeopardy bonus at the end of the game will be 10 bonus points awarded to whoever answers correctly. May the best mathematician win. Okay, the first question is for Ms. Barker. The question is, give an accurate description of a trapezoid. Well, this is an easy one. A trapezoid is defined as a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. The parallel sides are called bases. Correct! 10 points for Ms. Barker. The next question is for the average math student. Your question is, from this diagram, tell me what B and C represent. Why are the questions you test me with always 10 times harder than the questions on the review? Okay. B shows the two parts that are not the parallel bases, so they must be the legs of the trapezoid. And since C shows the two angles at the base of the trapezoid, they're called the base angles. Correct. 10 points for the average math student. Next question is for Ms. Barger. We know that an isosceles trapezoid has two congruent legs. What else is true about an isosceles trapezoid? Easy peasy. If a trapezoid is isosceles, then each pair of base angles is congruent. The converse of that is also true. Also, isosceles trapezoids have congruent diagonals. This is always true. Correct again, 10 more points. Next question, correct this statement. The midsegment of a trapezoid is parallel to each base, and the length is equal to the sum of the length of the bases. I don't know what's wrong with that statement. Wrong. This is something most math students have a hard time with. The length of the midsegment is half of the sum of the bases of the trapezoid. To find the length of the midsegment, you add the two bases together, and then you divide by 2. Sorry, you don't get any points for a wrong answer. So far, the score is 20-10 with Ms. Barger in the lead. Can I get a curve? No. Alright, next question. Kites are parallelograms, true or false? False. Kites are quadrilaterals that have two pair of congruent consecutive sides and only one pair of opposite angles are congruent. Back in my day, we flew kites all the time before you kids had all these knick-knack technology stuff. Oh. That's right, plus 10 for Miss Barger. True or false, if a quadrilateral is a kite, then its diagonals are perpendicular. To be honest, I really don't know. Well, I'll have a 50-50 chance of getting it right, so... True. You're lucky you got that right. The score is now 30-20. Name all the congruent pieces of this isosceles trapezoid and kite. Well, since the trapezoid is isosceles, we know right off the bat that the two legs are congruent. Like isosceles triangles, the base angles are also congruent. Since there are two bases in the trapezoid, there are also two pairs of congruent base angles. The diagonals are also congruent too. In this kite, the definition states that it has two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. There's also a theorem that states that this pair of opposite angles is congruent. Very elaborate response. Plus 10. Final question for the properties portion. True or false? It is possible for a kite to have a right angle. True. Okay, the properties portion of this game is over. The current score is 40-30 with Ms. Barger in the lead. The next section is where you will answer sample questions using these concepts we just went over. Since the questions will be more challenging, each contestant will be asked 3 questions each, and each question is worth 20 points instead of 10. Are you ready? The questions will be shown on the screen, and then you will be able to work them out if needed. First question. Yes, it is. With two parallel lines and a transversal, we know that consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Two right angles are supplementary. So we know that these two bases are parallel. Trapezoids have one pair of parallel bases. Excellent. Plus 20. You are now at 60 points. Question number 2. Well, x is the midsegment, so it's half of the sum of 21 plus 7, so you can set up the equation like this. And then you solve for x, and the answer is x equals 14. Well done. 20 more points for you. You are now at 15 points. Here's the next question. danger, danger. Know that the question is not only asking for x, but it's also asking for the length of each side, so make sure you answer the entire question so you don't get a good start. Those are the worst. Okay, so we know that the mid-segment is half of the sum of the two bases, so we can set up the equation like this. Then we solve for x, and we get x equals 3. Then you plug in 3 for x, and the sides are 10 and 15. Great explanation. 20 points for Miss B. Next question. Angle A is 50 degrees. It's the same as angle C. Wrong. You just made a common mistake. In kites, there's only one pair of congruent opposite angles. Angle B is congruent to angle D, so angle D is 120 degrees. Angle C and angle A are not congruent. Since there are 360 degrees total in any quadrilateral, angle A would have to be 70 degrees. Sorry, you don't get any points for that. The current score is 80 to 50. Each contestant has one more question left. Ms. Barker's last question is, since we know that kites have perpendicular diagonals, we know that they can form right angles and right triangles. We know the lengths of the sides, so we need to find the hypotenuse, and we can use the Pythagorean theorem. We use the numbers given for the sides, and we set up the equations like this. And you solve for the hypotenuse of the sides, and you get that these two sides are 2 root 13, and these two sides are 6 root 5. And we know that they're equal because in kites, they have consecutive congruent sides. Correct again, plus 20. And the last question for the average math student. Okay, so we'll call angle GX. Since this is a kite, we know that angle E and angle G are both the same, so they can both be x. So we can set up the equation like this, where all the angles added together in here equal to 360, and then we solve for x, and we get x equals 60, so angle G is equal to 60 degrees. Correct! That concludes our questions section, and the score is currently 100 to 70, Ms. Barger. Now it's time for our final Jeopardy question. Whoever answers this question correctly first gets 10 bonus points. Are you ready? Here's the final Jeopardy question. The mid-segment of a trapezoid is half the sum of the two bases, so you can set up the equation like this. And now we're in quadratic world, so you have to make it equal 0, and then you have to factor it. And then after factoring, you get x can equal 6 or 8. But if you plug in 6 or 8, that would make the mid-segment 36 or 50 units. However, if the mid-segment was 36 units and both bases were also 36 units, then the shape would be a parallelogram because all the sides are parallel and opposite sides are congruent. So x cannot be 6 because then it wouldn't be a trapezoid anymore. X can only be 8 and the mid-segment is 50. Ding ding, that's correct. The final score is Ms. Barger with 110 and the average math student with 70 points. Congratulations, Ms. Barger, you won today's show. That wraps up this episode, and thanks for joining us on Geometry Jeopardy! Chapter 8.5 Properties of Trapezoids and Kites. Tune in next week.